Welcome back again to the Lucky 13 podcast, where we talk about all things people in profit and business. I am your co-host, Mike Lantz.
Is business and sports the same thing? Josh Hauser here. Man, it feels a lot like the same thing, doesn't it?
Well, I think sports is a business, even at the youth level.
Huh. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, at all levels.
Because I say that because I feel like all of our analogies end up being sports-wise. I don't want anybody at home. That's where my head is. I'm thinking business, but I can only translate in coloring books and sports.
Well, I think there's so many transfers back and forth, like team building and leadership, and and at the end of the day, by the way, did you hear Mark Cuban sold the Mavs?
I heard for like $3 billion,
$3.2 billion or something. He only bought it. He bought it in 2000 for $285 million.
That's not a bad turnaround.
Yeah.
By the way, I've put myself in the adoption portal. You got all the other portals. See if Mark's interested.
Looking for Mark Cuban?
Yeah.
My son was out in Bloomington, not this past fall, but the fall before that.
Oh, he should have a connection.
And Cuban was out.
Oh, my gosh.
Like once a year, Cuban comes back to IU. He hasn't done it as much in the past few years, but he'll come back to IU and just hang out with the students and all of that kind of stuff. So you got a chance to meet him and things. And so Cuban... but in the same week, he quit Shark Tank or announced his retirement from Shark Tank.
Okay.
And he sold the Mavs.
Huh.
So how about that?
Wonder what he's
Kinda
going.
crazy.
He's got something going. Running for office.
He said, oh, that'd be interesting.
President Cuban.
He said he wanted to spend more time with family, is what was
He's
printed,
looking for a new White House to live in.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm starting rumors. That's what I'm doing.
So speaking of Mark Cuban, a huge achiever, what we're going to talk a little bit about today is the question, do you hate to lose more than you love to win?
Oh.
And we're going to get into that. And I think one of the most iconic people, and there was the movie that came out this year by Michael Jordan and the Netflix series and all that. Michael Jordan, I think we all know he hated to lose more than he loved to win.
Yep.
Right, for sure. And so we're not all Michael Jordans, but we, by any means, but we're going to talk a little about that.
I want to be like Mike.
Yeah, well, beats Mountain Dew.
That's a good call. Thank you. I'm rubbing that in.
So let's start with, you hear about this all the time, and all you got to do is flip through LinkedIn enough or read a book or a magazine, Entrepreneur, Health Magazine or whatever, and they talk about people's morning routines.
Oh, yeah.
So what is your morning routine, and what is the morning routine of high performers that you've heard of or been around?
Okay, so what do I want my morning routine to be, or what is my morning routine? Because it's a
let's
combination.
Go to what you want.
It's kind of combination. Because good friend of mine said, when you wake up in the morning, spend 10 minutes just looking straight up and don't do anything. Don't pick up your phone. Just say a quick prayer. Thanks for waking me up. Thanks for putting me in this warm bed. Thank you for putting me next to my soulmate of life, and just start with a gratitude mindset. And I love to wake up that way, but the reality is I gotta pee. And so I do as long as I can, and then I got to roll out.
Wait till you get older, even older.
Older,
yeah.
I'm already there. Mm-hmm. I'm already there. I don't have quite the hair that you do. No, morning routine for me always has something to do. I'm physically fitness is more and more as I'm hurting more and more. So drink the big glass of water first thing I get up. I got to do those things. I got to get some sort of exercise. I got to get a sweat going somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the hottest shower I can stand.
Yeah.
Reality is most of the time it's some sort of, up and down. Just get some blood flow going. Make my wife her coffee every morning. I always make her that
such
coffee.
Such a giver.
Well, it's just because I'm sure I'm going to say something dumb before I leave, and I can always go, don't forget I made the coffee. And then for me during school, and I'll end with this, I got to see my kids before I go. And I didn't do that for so long that is now part of my morning routine. And I see high achievers. You surround yourself with who you love and the books you read. So I love podcasts on the way to work. I listen to Simon Sinek or something, but I love to carry one of them little girls downstairs and get their morning breakfast started. I brush their hair until they tell me I can't, walk into the bus stop, and then I'm out. So if I do that, I'm pretty good for the day.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I'm usually up at 3:30 in the morning.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I sit there and I read and I pray, and then I do a cold plunge.
I got a lot of friends who cold plunge.
And then I go and I work out.
Do you have a cold plunge, or do you just put a cold bath in?
Oh, wait, I'm not Mark Wahlberg. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, it's Mark Wahlberg's morning routine.
Yeah, I was like, there is no way.
Yeah, it's not mine.
Do you really think he does that every morning?
I think he probably does. I mean, talk about an overachiever who came from not much.
Yeah.
Like that cat.
Good vibrations to one of the most nobody knows good vibrations, just me. Okay.
Yeah, I know good vibrations. One of my favorites is Entourage. Right?
Okay.
That he was, that was supposed to be a story about him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was, and he was one of the writers and producers of it and all
I
of
knew that. I didn't know it was about him.
It was, it followed his story a little bit.
I could see that.
It wasn't every.
I couldn't get into
thing.
that because we watched a lot of Frozen at our house.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Well, Entourage was out 15 years ago.
And I've had kids that long.
I know. Well, Frozen wasn't out then.
Yeah,
So,
okay, Pocahontas.
so just let it go.
Oh, that is cheesy.
Yeah. So my morning routine has changed quite a bit
All right, I wanna
over
hear it.
time, right? So when I had younger kids, mine was very similar to yours. I traveled a lot in various times of my career, so it didn't allow me to do some of those things that I wanted to do. But I think one of the most important things for me is to get up and have some time to myself and just kind of get focused and centered. And I'm big into learning and development, and so I like to listen to podcasts and things like that. And so I try to get into a position where I can get a lot of my head trash out of the way or that sort of thing to then show up as present as I can for my team.
Got it. Yeah.
And then, because, as a business owner, you have no idea where your day is going sometimes when you get in.
Yeah.
And as much as you try to control it, it doesn't necessarily end up that way. So I try to get my stuff done. And I cherish those early morning hours to be able to have some focused time to get personal and professional things done that are important to me so that I can be available to my team.
Okay, so now I'm jealous. Good job.
Yeah. So let's talk. What are some other things that you've heard other people do that are what we would consider high performers?
Yeah,
relative to their.
I'll pick on our guy who works here, Scott Jarrett. He does not. He is 7 to 8:30 in the gym, no matter what. There's so many guys who that physical fitness starting their day is what's critical to them.
Makes it easy when you have a CrossFit gym.
It does.
attached
It
onto
works
your
out well.
Office.
A CrossFit gym when I'm in there.
Okay.
I got a mentor of mine who he starts his morning with in his chair in the corner of the room, 20 minutes of meditation immediately. Gets up, walks over, sits in the chair, and just lets whatever enters his mind, and whatever needs to get out of his mind gets out of his mind. You hear those things. Obviously, you got a lot of the podcast people. I always love I had an uncle who used to call his mother every morning.
Oh, nice.
And that was his morning routine,
Yeah.
just to make sure that was his gratitude. As he said, you only get one, and so I'm going to make that call. So,
Great.
and he was a high performer. That's where all the brains went in the family.
Yeah.
Purdue grad.
And the hits just keep on coming. So let's dive into the actual topic here. So we're talking about high performers, and oftentimes we find high performers that usually they either hate to lose or they love to win.
Yeah.
And we probably know some people that
Correct.
could rattle off some names, but we'll protect the innocent, that fall into both categories. So why don't you define in your mind, what does it mean to be one of those types of people? Because I know you're like this, that hates to lose
Correct.
more than they love to win.
Yeah, winning. I will say this to the day I die: winning masks all problems. You can really be in a terrible mindset, not really prepare, and still win a game. Seen it happen over and over and over again.
Blind squirrel finds a nut.
I mean, half the time in the NCAA tournament, 80% of those teams win despite themselves. And you can go back, man, if they would hit this free throw or they made that pass. I think that's why I'm going to use basketball as my analogy, as we talked about sports a little bit ago, why we celebrate the Duke beating Kentucky basketball game so often. If you remember the Grant Hill to Christian Laettner turnaround, is because Duke had to beat Kentucky that night. Kentucky didn't belong on the floor. Now, longer term, Jamal Mashburn and all that has to happen. But we celebrate when teams actually have to beat somebody. And so that's why I hate losing, because losing means you didn't get my best. I didn't prepare. Mentally, I was there. I'd already spoke, my loss into truth, had already made my excuses, right? Created my own obstacles and hurdles. And so I would rather get beat than win. And I know that sounds awful, because if you beat me, you got my best. There's a lot of times that you can win and not actually give your best. That doesn't feel near as good, in my opinion. That's where I sit. I don't know where you sit on that.
Well, so maybe the differentiator isn't, do you hate to lose more than you love to win? It's really about how you show up every day. Right?
There it is.
It's
not
about
the
how you
scoreboard.
show up. It's not scoreboard, because I love to win.
Yeah.
But I also hate to lose. So it's not either or for me.
Yeah.
But I know when I'm going into a situation that I'm not as set up as much to win. And I've won sometimes when I'm not as prepared in front of a client, or I'm not as prepared in front of a prospect or an employee, and I can still win, but I haven't done my best.
Yeah. I'm going to give a shout out to a former boss, and I hope he gets to hear this someday, because it's resonated with. This has stuck with me for years. Scott Davison runs One America, wonderful company, a wonderful man, just a great leader in the community. He used to coach swimming, and he probably still does, because he can't help it. That's his calling, right? It's part of who he is. And he would laugh about walking around the pool deck and people saying, "Good luck, coach," or "Good luck, Scott." and he would literally laugh. And he never says good luck to anybody else. And his reasoning is, I've prepared. Luck is not going to have anything to do with this. If I've prepared, I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity that luck provides, but luck wasn't why I took advantage of that. I actually did the preparation and my mindset was right. And that stuck with me so long that, man, if you live lucky, that means you're winning despite.
Bad strategy,
it's a terrible strategy. I mean, might as well go to Vegas then, right?
Yeah.
That's what, scrap the business, go to Vegas, live lucky.
Yeah.
Where I'd rather be prepared and actually put controls in. And when it doesn't work, then I can actually analyze and find out why. And sometimes that loss, that quote unquote loss, which I would call getting beat, can expose the opportunity so it doesn't happen again. Where winning doesn't expose the opportunity. We did it. And we don't realize there were 3 pitfalls that we just accidentally missed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. By the way, did you have any swimmers growing up? Like any of your kids?
Well, summer swim. My wife, my wife can beat us all. This is great. She reminds us of that. But actually, that's where Kobe started. Just real quick. Then we started there, and then we were in the Carmel Swim Club. I don't know if you've heard. They have a decent swim team. Yeah. And as a 6-year-old, we were to make the commitment. We were going to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And I did not have those morning routines down for the 5 o'clock in the morning. Drop my kid off, and so we went to football.
Yeah, so here, I had a daughter. My oldest daughter swam for a hot minute. And one of the things that frustrated me about swimming is that you're sitting in this hot, humid natatorium, I think that's what they call it?
Yeah.
All day.
Smells like feet and corn chips.
And for whatever reason, my daughter always would swim the first event and the last event.
Yes.
Drive me crazy.
Yeah.
So we adopted this philosophy, and then my son Mason played some baseball. We adopted a philosophy that you could not play a sport in our house if it wasn't on a clock.
Oh.
Football games, for the most part, right? Basketball games, they start and end kind of at a certain time. My daughter got into band, right? And so she was one of the flag twirlers, you know? Well, that is absolutely on a clock. We used to show up at the time they said they were going to perform, and they had 7 minutes on the field, and then it was over.
I like that idea.
Never. That's a piece of parenting advice for people.
If
you have a lot of kids, make them play sports that are on a clock where there's a start and an end time.
I like it.
Baseball is not one of those, no matter how much I love. Golf really isn't one of those either.
But I'm okay if one of my kids play golf.
Yeah, that'd be true too. They could play forever. Okay, let's get back to this. So, sorry, I
love that, by the way.
Squirrel. We divert. So let's think about some of the characteristics that might be of somebody who hates to lose. And however we're going to define that, but I think this comes back to a couple of weeks ago, we did a episode on talent attraction and how we get people. So if you're a place that wants to attract people that hate to lose, we want people that love to win too, but we want them to care about losing, right? We don't want people like, we didn't win, so who cares? Like, we want people to care about it. So what do those people really look like?
Oh, wow. You know what? You are putting me in a position that I don't know if I've ever defined a recruiting. Remember, we had the recruiting conversation. You put people in tests, put a test in place to define what we call wit, wow, wow, whatever it takes without whining, while only winning. I'm going to reverse that question. I'm going to hit you right back with it I want that person. I want that wit, wow, wow person, that person that when they lose causes an autopsy of what would I have done different. How would you create something like that? I'm going to use your HR talents. Yeah. What kind of tests could I put in place? Because I want to surround myself with those folks and not accidentally not get lucky and find them.
Well, like I think if we're defining what that kind of person looks like, one of the things is mindset. Okay. And so oftentimes when I've hired people in the past, I on purpose am not all that responsive as the hirer. Yeah. To see how aggressive they will be.
Fortunes in the follow-up.
I actually had somebody once that I kind of was blown off. I actually liked them, but it was for a business development role. I wanted to understand how interested they were in the job. They called me twice. I didn't return the phone call. The next day, they were in my lobby when I showed up from work.
I like that person.
What that says to me is that's somebody
whatever it takes without whining.
Has the right mindset. So it's about figuring out ways to evaluate that, with that having mindset. And so that person had a mindset that they did not want to lose. Like they saw this as an opportunity they didn't want to lose. So I think mindsets are really important.
I would go there, and I would 100% agree with that. And I love ways to test that. Yeah. How do you test that mindset? How do you put them through scenarios? Because we can ask the questions, give me a time when this happened and how did you handle that? Yeah. I'd rather actually see a real life experience that I could observe that.
Yeah. You already talked about one relative to the the previous boss you had that the swimming example. What was his name again?
Scott Davidson.
That's right.
Amazing.
Yeah, about preparation. Like I think that's another thing. Like you used to say, you shared with me earlier that nobody ever beat you when you were playing basketball. Nobody ever beat you in sprints. And because you prepared for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Mentally, I knew what I was getting myself into, but I also physically prepared for it.
Yeah.
Too.
So talk more about preparation as it relates to people that have this mindset of not wanting to lose.
I mean, we all see the quotes, right? Opportunities when preparation, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? But you actually have to be intentional about that preparation. And you got to know, first of all, are you willing to do it? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it to keep your job? Are you doing it because you just hate to lose? Are you doing it because this is what the team needs? But you got to get clear on that, because we can all act out a character for so long if we know how long and why, right? But that preparation, I knew I could run that hard if I knew how many sprints I had to run and why I was running those sprints. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I would argue the same thing as it pertains to looking for those people that when you know that they will prepare, if they know how long and why, they will put themselves in that position to do so. And we want that to be for a full year, 2 years, and 3 years. Every once in a while, we got to go to those gritty places, the Tiger Woods grind places, and know that I got to get into this zone for this long. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, your oldest son, Kobe, is in the Air Force, and a friend of mine spent 10 years in the Army, and never saw like active combat. Okay, never was deployed or anything like that. Not because he wasn't willing, or it just there wasn't anything to deploy him to. And I remember talking to him one time, and he goes, "It was the craziest thing. I spent 10 years preparing every single day for something that never even freaking happened."
Yeah,
I mean, but every day was, what if this happens? What if that happens? Constant preparation, so that they develop this mindset of, we're not going to lose.
Yeah. I mean, and we look for that in our military people, right? That they believe that at any given moment, I tease my son, he's protecting us from the Canadians if they ever want to come see the nuclear missiles. Yeah. But if that ever happened, that's the kid I want there, because I know what he does every day. I want that same kind of kid in my business. I want that same kind of, lady running my sales team. I want that person who knows at the moment when that what if happens, I've already prepared for the what if. Yeah. I got it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, then the last one that we'll get to and we'll wrap up is, man, this competitive nature. And I think, I know there are people out there that are like, man, they just talk about sports too much. But if you don't like it, there's other podcasts you can listen to. But Michael Jordan, probably, and I don't know about you and your kids, like, we're Jordan guys.
I am.
Are your two sons and your daughters, are they Jordan or LeBron?
I'm giving a secret away. Hopefully this doesn't post before the family pictures. It's 2023. Our family pictures are in Jordan gear this year.
Yeah, it's the year of LeBron, or year of Jordan, sorry.
Watch your dirty mouth.
2023. So I debate this all the time. Jackson and Mason, they're all about LeBron. I'm all about Jordan. But I think it's an age thing too when you're growing up. But I don't think there was anybody, and we'll throw LeBron into it too, massively competitive.
Oh, absolutely.
Massively competitive, which can be a strength or a weakness.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, if the competitiveness comes at the detriment of the relationships you have with those around you, you end up having to do a lot of things on your own. All right. And then there were moments, you could even argue that in Jordan's early years, that was his life, and why everybody knew who he was until, postseason. And then we forgot about him. And we'll see what happens. And this is where I love a mentor that can actually harness that competitiveness. And this is where the Phil Jackson in life comes in, that can harness that competitiveness and then show how you can lead with it rather than beat everybody else down with it, right? Yeah. I can be the top producer and not have to be the weight that pushes everybody down. I can actually be that catapult that brings along with. And, that competitiveness, I look at competitiveness as, am I getting my best me and am I getting our best we? Yeah. Rather than look at me, look at my numbers, put the ego away. I'll call it. A lot of people use competitiveness from a fear factor. When you turn competitiveness into the love factor, that I love to see us win, I love to see us succeed, I love to see us hit our goals, man, I want to surround myself with that all day long.
Yeah. Can you develop competitiveness?
Oh, my kids will tell you I can. At Hunger Games, we throw 6 pieces of pizza for 8 kids on the table and see what happens. I don't know if that's healthy.
That's just instinct right there. Yeah. That's just, I got to eat.
You know what? We can't help that we have a competitiveness in us just from our fear and saber-tooth tigers, right? But it's at what level? I don't know if you can develop it, but you can develop an awareness of it, if that makes sense. I don't know if I can actually make you really desire to find your best you to beat me in a sprint or, beat me in horse. but you can be aware of why it's important to all of us, and that you won't be the water to the flame of that competitiveness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So to wrap this up, I think the application in this to our listeners and to businesses, it's okay to love to win.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's amazing.
And we can oftentimes, if we hate to lose, hate to lose more, then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of crap all over the winning. It's never going to be good enough for us. I think what's important is that when we do lose, we got to care enough about it to step back and say, what could I have done differently? Do I need a different mindset in the way I think about this? Could I become more competitive? Because if I don't really care, then that's bothersome. And how could I have prepared a little bit better? And so my encouragement is for people to just, when they lose, to step back and ask some questions and say, how could we have done things different to create the win for us? But what we don't want is somebody that's like, oh, well, I'll just move on to the next one.
No, I've heard this said by a great coach. Jerry Hoover taught me this a long time ago. Bad losers project the loss. Good winners who actually just got beat will actually reflect and look for recommendations.
Yeah.
And can you imagine every time that something goes wrong, I'm going to take that step back, I'm going to reflect, and then I'm going to be open to some recommendations rather than project that they got there because of, and I didn't get this because of, rather than what could I have done different and what could we do, and what will we do different next time?
Excellent.
Does that make sense?
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Josh. Fun stuff today. We'll talk next week.